Welcome to the channel and welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. Viktor Gyokeres would be open to joining United even without Champions League football. Personal terms have been agreed with Bryan Mbeumo. Exit talk involving Hojlund, Antony and Mainoo, and United are coming out fighting by spending big this window. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with talk with the town, the next kind of target, the player that we are heavily invested in and in negotiations with, none other than Bryan Mbeumo. So let's run through the latest on what's been happening on his situation, because some really big updates coming out. So Brentford are looking for £50 million plus performance-related add-ons, taking the total to £60 million. All parties want the move. Manchester United are not looking to drag this deal out longer than they should. Now, that came from Sean Connolly and the Muppeteers, both good sources, in my opinion, when it comes to United news. So we know we had a £45 million plus £10 million in add-on bid rejected by Brentford. Brentford want close to £60 million or close to what we paid for Matheus Cunha. They're using that as their benchmark to get value for money for their player. And it's just a case of working out, you know, how much cash we want to pay up front, and the add-ons and that sort of thing. That's the negotiations that are currently ongoing between us and Brentford regarding Bryan Mbeumo. And according to the Muppeteers, they want £50 million guaranteed money, and then the rest in kind of add-ons they'd be happy with, or above £50 million plus, or 55, for example. And then Simon Stone is a good source, said that Manchester United are confident they can complete a deal to sign Bryan Mbeumo. The Times were saying that Brentford feel they are under no pressure to lower their £60 million asking price, given they have an option to extend the forward's contract by another year. So obviously Brentford are in a position where they don't need to accept like a lowball offer necessarily for Bryan Mbeumo. Rudy Guiletti, though, has said that positive contacts yesterday between Manchester United and Brentford over Bryan Mbeumo. Brentford wants £60 to £65 million total, of which £50 to £55 million fixed. Manchester United are now seriously considering a new package close to that amount, leveraging on add-ons. So again, another kind of source. It's believed about £50 to £55 million Brentford want up front, and then add-ons on top of that as well to take it up to the £60 to £65 million kind of bracket, and then they'll probably agree to a deal on that. Disco Mirror, though, is good source, saying that Bryan Mbeumo has already indicated his desire to join United with personal terms of around £200,000 a week, said to have already been agreed over a 5-year contract with an option for an extra year. So £200,000 or thereabouts, not the £250,000 a week that's been reported and debunked by other kind of sources and journalists as well, like Laurie Whitwell and stuff. So about £200,000 a week, which is believed to be what we're roughly paying Matheus Cunha. Romano's just dropped an update at the time of recording this video, though, saying that Manchester United again in direct club-to-club contact with Brentford for Bryan Mbeumo. Second proposal ready. Manchester United are ready to get closer to Cunha valuation, and Mbeumo has been clear he wants only Manchester United, so it's getting kind of closer. We're back in direct club-to-club negotiations. By all accounts, we're prepared to increase our bid, and then whether we will increase it up to the amount that Brentford accept. Obviously, it's getting closer, this kind of deal. We're just in that kind of negotiation phase, as all transfers kind of do. Obviously, the Cunha one didn't go on like this because he had a release clause. We only just had to ask. The only thing we negotiated or tried to negotiate was, can we pay it over 5 years and instead of the 3 years? And Wolves were like, no, we want it in 3 installments. And we were like, okay, that's what it says in the contract. So that's what we kind of had to do, which is why that deal was done a lot kind of quicker. Rob Dawson, though, has said that Manchester United have raised another bid for Bryan Mbeumo. The offer is over £60 million. United are pushing to complete the deal. So this is one. We've agreed personal terms, contract about £200,000 per week. And it's just a case of getting above that kind of £50 to £55 million initial payment for Brentford. Obviously, that'll be spread out over I don't know, 2-3 years or whatever it'll work out as. I'm sure it'll all come out in the wash, the kind of deals of the payments, because as a United fan, we know that we have to become finance experts as well as supporting the football club. So all of these kind of deals will come out in the wash, and then hopefully, so this is ticking along. It's you know, I'm quietly confident that we'll get this one done over the line. If we've agreed personal terms and it's just a case of ironing out the kind of total cost whether it's with the add-ons and the initial kind of upfront fee. That's what we're negotiating with Brentford as well. So it's believed that the deal is very likely for Mbeumo. So so smash a like on the video if you're excited by that, and give us your thoughts on Mbeumo in the comments. Now, another player we've been linked with, so once we get the Mbeumo deal done, the next priority position it's believed to be as the striker position, which is the priority anyway this summer. Obviously, we've deviated a little bit, I think, because when we got rejected by Liam Delap, I think that's what's kind of forced our hand with Mbeumo, because there's an opportunity there, and maybe Mbeumo gave a little bit more, of a green light to say, actually, look, if you come for me, maybe I would prefer to come to you as well. So there could be something regarding that. But we need a striker. That's the next kind of priority position that we're going to be going for. And the main name linked at the moment is Viktor Gyokeres. So Ben Jacobs, interestingly, said that if Manchester United can find a way to pay the €70 million for Viktor Gyokeres, he would be keen to reunite with Ruben Amorim, even without Champions League football. Outgoings will play a big part in such funds, though. So what Ben Jacobs was saying, and Ben Jacobs, I normally think hit him, he's actually been a little bit more hit than miss recently as well, to his kind of credit. First on the Cunha deal, he's been kind of reliable when it comes to obviously the Saudi links with Bruno and stuff. So, he's actually got a few things spot on so far this transfer window, so credit where it's due regarding journalists and the news that they're kind of putting out there as well. Interestingly, though, that's the first kind of journalist that's gone with the Gyokeres would come to United even without Champions League football, because that's been the kind of worry with Gyokeres, is does he want to not play in the Champions League? According to Ben Jacobs, not a factor. Whether it would be an issue, though, if a team in the Champions League came in for him as well, so i.e. Arsenal or also one of the other teams linked with him, they came in with a bid and he had to choose between United and Arsenal, would he favour us above a team in the Champions League? We don't know the answer to those sort of questions as well. But it's encouraging that, he would come without Champions League. It's just we need to find the money, because beyond Mbeumo, and we're going to go through a little bit around the financial situation in a bit as well. There's been some interesting updates regarding that. It's believed that we need to raise money in order to get the money to go and buy Gyokeres. So we're going to need to sell somebody, or one or two players, to get that money in to go for Gyokeres. But apparently he'd be interested in kind of come as well. And there are rumours from people like the Muppeteers and stuff that apparently he might be waiting for United as well, but we'll say that a little bit quietly. So, this is one to kind of pay attention to. Nico as well, who's been a good source, Italian journalist, who actually went early with the Matheus Cunha done deal, with the contract correct as well, is saying that Manchester United are ready to open talks for Viktor Gyokeres, who is ready to leave Sporting for €65 million during the summer transfer window. So this is one that's kind of picking up a little bit more noise. This is one where until we get the here we go, or until we see him in a shirt and actually playing on the pitch, I'll probably be a little bit skeptical of, because, he's a top quality player that's available for a good price in a market where a lot of teams need strikers. So this is one where I would want to do it, but I'm kind of just, and this is just my personal opinion, they're not based on anything. This is one where actually I'm kind of a little bit like, I need to wait and see. I want to wait and see for a bit more credibility and a bit more kind of stories and reports before getting too giddy around Viktor Gyokeres. Now, another striker that we've been linked with, Victor Osimhen, so from one Victor to another. Now, we've been, I don't want to say linked with him, we know we've been linked with Victor Osimhen in the past, but the noise going around is because apparently his deal to the Saudi Pro League has collapsed. So Fabrizio Romano has said, understand Victor Osimhen deal with Al Hilal about to collapse as there is no agreement with the player. Galatasaray have entered strong in the race, trying to get a deal done. So obviously now there's been a lot of talk online and social media and stuff about potentially United going back in Victor Osimhen if his deal has collapsed to the Saudi Pro League. Rob Dawson, though, and Mark Ogden, good sources on ESPN, though, however, have said that Manchester United will not be pursuing a move for Victor Osimhen. The club believe he is not the profile of striker required by Ruben Amorim, while his reported £63 million transfer fee would also be an issue. I don't necessarily think that that's true, because it's not too far off of what we're going to be paying for Gyokeres anyway. I think it's more the wages. It's more the wages that are potentially the issue with Victor Osimhen. That's been widely reported. I've been mentioning that on this channel for months since Romano put it out there that he wants the same money as what he is on now, which works out roughly for United about 350, it's £328,000 per week is what he's kind of asking for, what we would have to pay him to take home what he's taken home now because of the UK tax system. Rudy Galletti said that more on Osimhen and Galatasaray are pushing hard to keep him, ready to trigger his release clause and offering 20 million euros a year, including bonuses, to convince him to stay. Victor feels at home in Istanbul, is in love with the passion of the fans, but it may not be enough as well. So that's like, there's something weird with Osimhen, right? Like, I think out of the two, I think Osimhen's the better striker out of Gyokeres and Osimhen, right? I genuinely do. But does anyone else, like, there's a big red flag with Osimhen. Like, why do these deals keep collapsing? Because he was on the verge of joining potentially Chelsea last summer, deal collapsed. Then he was on the verge of joining Saudi last summer as well, deal collapsed. Ended up on loan at Galatasaray. Now, a similar thing with Saudi when they're offering him massive kind of money. Like, what is it? That is a big red flag for me. Like, why is it these deals keep collapsing? Like, I know Napoli are a tough team to negotiate with, but he's got a release clause, and Saudi will just pay the release clause. Like we have with Cunha. We've got Cunha because he's got a release clause, and the negotiations, as I mentioned earlier, were just, well, all we had to work out was the installment payments for the £62.5 million. We tried 5. We wanted to do it over 5 years. Wolves were like, nah, mate, 3. And we were like, okay, we'll have to do it over 3. And that was the negotiations because of that release clause. Osimhen has a release clause as well. So what is it that keeps kind of falling apart with these deals? Why is it he's not... Like it's a big red flag for me, personally, with Victor Osimhen, until I find out exactly why these deals are collapsing. You know, I just think it's like, it just doesn't fill me with confidence. But according to Rob Dawson, that anyway, we're not going for Osimhen. Osimhen, his wages are going to be the problem unless he wants to take a massive pay cut and come to United. I can't see that one going ahead, but keep an eye on it for you. Give us your thoughts though in the comments regarding. In fact, give us your thoughts on Osimhen or Gyokeres. If both are available and we could go for both, who you're picking? That would be interesting to hear your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now let's go through the rest of the news. So Manchester United are coming out fighting. I think they will spend big in the transfer window this summer. Of course, they will have to balance their books. So Sky Cafe is saying that United are planning to come out fighting and spend big this transfer window, which would be exciting and needed as well, considering the shambles of a season that we've just witnessed. Now, interestingly, Simon Stone said something similar, that Manchester United are saying privately there is scope for disciplined investment in the first team due to reduction in the wage bill and other savings. Now, Manchester United just released their kind of their third quarter figures, where they're saying the total revenue, £160.5 million is up from £136.7 million in the same period in 2024. So matchday, commercial, broadcast streams all rising. So basically, because we got further in the Europa League or to the final, that increases, you know, the TV revenue and gate receipts and tickets and stuff as well. So that's up. So income is up. Wages, a reduction of £20 million on year prior with no Champions League. So obviously the 25% reduction in all the player staff for not getting in the Champions League. January sales, so i.e. loading out Antony and Rashford and Malaysia, helped kind of reduce the wage bill, and the dreaded redundancies that we've done as well have all kind of contributed to our reduction, £20 million on year from the year before, in a reduction in wages as well. And all of this is kind of going towards, you know, improving United's financial kind of position as well. As shit as it is, and as much as I do not agree with all the decisions that Ineos are making, you know, it's working, clearly, going off of the kind of figures as well. It's just, can they sustain it, will be the big question mark for Ineos going forward. Now, interestingly, I brought you a little bit of the report yesterday from The Athletic regarding United's and the PSR perspective of the club. I've had a bit more time to research and kind of understand it fully as well. So I just wanted to run through that while we're talking about the finances. So Manchester United's PSR position is calculated using the accounts of Red Football Limited rather than Manchester United PLC. So Red Football Limited is a subsidiary of the PLC entity. So basically, in simple terms, all the finances that have been reported in the media and online and everything have all been Man United's PLC's books, which is where the debt is, which is where, you know, the the payments for players and stuff like that, all kind of reported on United PLC's books. However, the financial side of things, in terms of the account or the company that report their figures to UEFA and the Premier League, is actually a company called Red Football Limited, which is still under the umbrella of Manchester United. Still, it's like a what it says there, subsidiary of United. And that's the kind of financial books that get reported and get fed through the PSR system. Make sense? Makes sense. Now, what they're saying is, based on Red Football Limited's loss figures, it's a struggle to see how there were ever any PSR worries at the club, though that's not true once. Though that's only true once Ratcliffe's arrival was accompanied by equity investment, which raised United's 3-year PSR loss limited from £15 million to £105 million. So again, what they're saying in there, so the Athletic have done a really good investigation on here. They said, looking at Red Football Limited's books, they're saying, well, why were they ever worried about PSR? Because they had money, wiggle room there anyway. So effectively, but they had £15 million still wiggle room from a PSR perspective. But because Sir Jim's bought into the club, and you remember he gave a cash injection into the club as well, some of that's gone towards our PSR figures, which now means we are back square where we can lose £105 million over the next 3 seasons from a PSR perspective, which is brilliant. But then also, they said that United could lose around £141 million in the 24-25 and still comply with Premier League rules. In other words, they'll be fine this summer, however surprising it may seem. So all the doom and gloom, all the naysayers and stuff around PSR is not true. We are not close or not in any concern from a PSR perspective. What the problem with is at United, so we can technically lose £141 million and we'd still comply with PSR, right? Which gives us a bucket load of money to go and spend. The problem is United don't have the money to spend. That's the issue with Man United, the finances. The pennies kind of dropped when reading this report, because I've always thought, well, how are we this much in debt, yet we can go out every summer and spend £150 million? Just makes no sense. And this is the reason why. So in order to spend more money, we have to bring money in. And one of the best ways to bring money in is through player sales. And that's what we're kind of looking at. And obviously increasing revenue and reducing wages and getting rid of the debt would be helpful as well. But the Glazers aren't going anywhere anytime soon. All these things, so it can increase our cash income, then we're fine with PSR. So we're fine with PSR. We just need the money to spend, because at the minute we're using kind of credit cards, believe it or not, to buy players, and that's just increasing the debt. That's increasing the interest payment. That doesn't help us as well. I hope that makes sense, but give us your shouts in the comments on the financial situation below. So again, as I mentioned there, one of the best ways to increase income for United is to sell players. And the Mail, so this was from Simon Jones in the Mail, who's a good source as well, saying that Andre Onana, Kobe Mainoo, Garnacho and Antony are likely to leave the club this summer. That's another kind of source suggesting Kobe Mainoo potentially likely to leave this summer as well. Obviously, it was Nave Soat, I think, in the Mail. There's been a few kind of murmurings around Kobe Mainoo's name on the potential exit list, although it's not necessarily seen as a priority. But if they got a bid for Kobe Mainoo, then I think they're reading between the lines, they might accept it if it's a big offer. On the midfield, though, the United stand was saying that Ruben Amorim considers a new midfielder key for his rebuild this summer. I agree, and I know some of you have been mentioning that in comments on previous videos as well, that we do need to look at the midfield. I think once we've got Mbeumo and potentially a striker, I think that'll be the next area of focus as a midfielder. But funds must be raised, likely requiring the sale of Casemiro or Mainoo. Toby Collier could also leave Manchester United this summer, with a loan likely. Now, again, that's worrying, because who's more likely to be sold out of Casemiro and Mainoo? I would suggest Mainoo, because there's no interest in Casemiro. He's only got a year left on his contract and his wages are astronomical, and that causes a big kind of issue as well. So again, if we're looking to have to sell it's not necessarily a sell to buy position for position, but raise money to get a midfielder in, I wouldn't like to see us sell Kobe Mainoo. I personally wouldn't. I think it would be, I think we'd end up with egg on our face in the future with Kobe Mainoo. Who's got the right attitude, and I think he can learn and develop, and I think there's more potential in Kobe Mainoo. So that doesn't sit right with me. Kobe Mainoo looking to be sold. Definitely you'd sell Casemiro ahead of Mainoo anyway, but is that possible because of his wages? That's going to be the biggest kind of question mark. The only way I would feel comfortable if you sold Kobe Mainoo, the only thing I would be comfortable with is bringing in a replacement of outstanding kind of quality. And one of those players could be Adam Wharton. So Adam Wharton is a player who Manchester United admire a lot. Due to the current circumstances, the chance of the deal happening this summer is impossible. Expect his name to pop up next year in this summer. So the Muppeteers and Sean Connolly were effectively saying that Adam Wharton is a player that Manchester United like and admire, but unlikely this summer because I think Crystal Palace will price him out. But if you've got big money for Kobbie Mainoo, could you then use big money to go and get someone like Adam Wharton? I still wouldn't feel comfortable about that, but give us your kind of thoughts and shouts on that in the comments below. And then the final couple of stories in regarding exits. So Rasmus Hojlund is not satisfied with his time at Manchester United and is considering a return to Italy. Several clubs are interested in him. That came from Alfredo Padula. However, Dimarzio was saying that Inter will wait for new manager Christian Chivu's opinion before deciding whether or not to pursue their interest in Rasmus Hojlund. The Gazzetta was saying as well that Inter might be his likely destination. Talk of like an option to a loan with an option to buy, which might turn into an obligation to buy depending on performances and stuff as well, which might be, which might be what we can get for Rasmus Hojlund. But again, he's still a player heavily linked with leaving. And then the other one is Garnacho. So something between Napoli's £40 million valuation of Alejandro Garnacho and Man United's £60 million asking price is likely to get a deal done. So Ben Jacobs was saying that if Napoli are interested, they value Garnacho at 40, we value him at 60. It's going to be a meet in the middle situation, isn't it, when it comes to negotiations like that? So you're talking 50, maybe with some add-ons, similar to what we do with the Mbeumo situation. Brentford want £50 million cash plus add-ons. We might have to do some kind of deal with that regarding Garnacho as well. I think that's the easiest deal, the easiest player for us to sell, I think, is Garnacho. He's on low wage. There's going to be interest around on him as well. He's obviously got high potential. If we could, I think Garnacho would be easier to sell than Rashford, Antony, and the others as well, just purely because I think he's got value and he's on relatively low wages as well. So that might be one way that once we get Mbeumo done, maybe we then concentrate on Garnacho exit and then use that money to maybe bring in Gyokeres, for example. I could see some kind of situation like that playing out, but we'll need to wait and see. Because again, selling players is all very well and good. We need buyers. We need buyers to step forward and start making bids and stuff as well. But I'm more like, I'm excited about the incoming. Of course I am, because, we need to improve the squad, and the only way to improve this squad is by bringing players in. But it's going to be really interesting to see what the exits are and who they actually kind of can get rid of, because it's been needed for a while. The rebuild, the squad overhaul, we hear it every year and nothing ever materializes. So it's going to be really interesting to keep an eye on, actually, can they get ruthless with some exits this summer? So I'm intrigued by who leaves the club just as much as I am as who kind of comes into the club. And then the final player is Antony. So Real Betis are interested in turning Antony's loan into a permanent deal. That came from James Ducker in the Telegraph. Now, interestingly, there's been a few reports that Betis might be selling Cardosa to Athletic Madrid for around 30 to 40 million pounds, which then might give them the money to potentially come back in and do some kind of deal with Antony, because Antony might prefer just to stay at Real Betis, considering his time there, and obviously did really well and made a bit of a, revived his career essentially there as well. So that's one that can't be ruled out. Interestingly though, Florian Plettenberg said that buying Leverkusen and monitoring Antony, he's on the list, but at this stage it's nothing more than that. I mean, Ten Hag loves signing his former players. Surely he needs a striker, surely he needs a goalkeeper, surely he needs Antony as well, a left-footed right winger as well. Come on, Eric, we're waiting for you to take the players that you wanted to sign for United back to Leverkusen, and show us what they're all about as well. Like, that would be, that would be one way, and potentially they could afford it as well if they're going to sell Florian Wirtz to Liverpool for big money. They're going to have potentially money to spend as well, so that's an interesting kind of option. Apparently Leverkusen were linked with Garnacho as well. Could be one of the clubs potentially in the running for him as well. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. Mundo Deportivo, though, were saying Bayern Munich have between 50 and 70 million euros to offer for a single player this summer, and that could very well be Antony. Now, that would be a bit of a surprise if Bayern Munich decided to go for Antony. But again, we need to wait and kind of see how it plays out. And Gimme Sport was saying, though, that regardless of the Antony situation, Manchester United head coach Ruben Amorim has decided he will not hand Antony another chance to reignite his Old Trafford career. So regardless, a little bit like Sancho, we've heard reports that regardless of what happens, Sancho's not being given a chance. He's not coming back to necessarily United or into the first team position, and Antony's going to be exactly the same as well. And I like that kind of approach, and that's what we need. We need to be ruthless with the exits as well, because that's been a massive part of our problem over recent years, is not being able to remove the players. It's just as important as bringing in the players, in my opinion, as well. But yeah, give us your thoughts on that in the comments. Give us your shouts on all the other topics discussed in today's video. That's you all up to date with the latest news. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.